Past bills this week, but it'll be about $310 million plus some additional categoricals added back in a couple of different ways. One of the ways is
which nets out per student at what back?
About a little more than $200
back in.
Yeah. So it works out. Part of it through the contribution that the school aid fund money sent into any particular school, and then they turn around and write a check to the retirement accounts, and so the amount that they have to turn around and write back into the retirement accounts will be reduced by a certain amount per student. So in other words, it'll be a contribution toward the retiree obligations that the schools would otherwise have to make, and then the other part will be direct payment to the schools with the same type of best practice framework that local governments are under for the statutory revenue sharing. And that'll be a bar that it shouldn't be, particularly in year number one, particularly hard for them to reach. It's more kind of setting the stage for the longer term cost reforms that we all know we have to do at every level of government. I would say including, or I'd say especially in schools, just because the cost structures that we see within schools in terms of the cost, the cost of per employee, the increases that we see year over year. Even in a time, if we had an economy just on fire, we can't sustain 7 to 11%.
All those automatic steps that are built into it.
Yeah, virtually in every, it's true here in this community, it's true all across the state. I wouldn't want to single anybody out, but there are typically 3 types of raises in each of the school contracts. And what will happen is they'll take one of them, the economic kind of wage scale increase. If they might reduce that or even freeze that and say, well, we've frozen wages, but you still see 5, 6, 7% overall increase, even though they're frozen wages. So those are the sorts of things we do have to get more of a handle on and just be realistic about it. The types of cost increases year over year that we can really afford.
Would it take a constitutional amendment to separate classroom money from these entitlement liabilities?
Well, it wouldn't take a constitutional amendment to do it. I know for the administration's part, our preference is to provide incentives to move in certain directions as opposed to a bunch of different mandates. Clearly, we've seen though there's been some appetite within the legislative process to put certain guidelines or standards in place statewide. For example, an 80-20 cost share on a premium, which is what we've put. The Civil Service Commission put state employees for the last several years under, what the governor and I are both subject to as well, and the legislature will be under Senate Bill 7 if it passes, and I think it will. So there's some of those kind of statewide standards or minimums that are likely to be put in place, but I think when it comes to the majority of the service consolidation efforts and so forth, that we'd prefer to have that happen through an incentive process so that things that are more natural might happen as opposed to us trying to figure out a statewide solution that fits in every community, because that's a pretty tough nut to crack. To have it make sense in each community. There's some things in some areas where consolidation of transportation makes sense, other places it doesn't. And so we'd hold that up as an example to look at. But the one thing I think it is safe to say that a premium cost share on health insurance is something that really does make sense statewide. It just as a practical matter. That's where the world's going, and it's sooner or later it's where
the world is.
Yeah. Well, the world's actually a little further. Yeah.